the biggest female rapper of all time, has never won a Grammy. But if you look at her impact in the streets with people's everyday lives, she's goated. Institutions like the Grammys and stuff aren't necessarily going to support our artists. They're not necessarily going to respect our artists, and they're not necessarily going to make our artists win. We should be looking to outlets that represent us, because it's the people who think like you, who live the life that you do, who are listening to music for the reasons that you're listening to music. They're the ones whose taste you should worry about, who you should be checking in with, your community, your actual people you know. You don't know anybody on the Grammys committee. Welcome back to my channel. I hope this isn't your first time, but if it is, I'm Blessing Makosha, aka Big Money B, and I like making videos about femme rap and hip hop culture. So the 2023 Grammy nominations were released a few weeks ago, and unsurprisingly, Nicki Minaj was snubbed and didn't receive a single nomination. Now, whilst this wasn't surprising because Nicki's been nominated 10 times for the Grammys and has won none, despite the fact that she is the loudest and most established female voice in hip hop, the most lyrically gifted of her generation. What's interesting about this situation is so many people who previously didn't speak out about Nicki started to speak out. You had more and more platforms, celebrities calling out the blatant unfairness of Nicki Minaj still not having received any Grammys. So I touched on Nicki's relationship with the Grammys in my last video, where I talked about what Latto did wrong after her public back and forth with Nicki, because Nicki mentioned her as part of her conversation as to how the Grammys are manipulating things, because Latto's big energy was kept in the rap category for nomination, whereas Nicki Minaj's Super Freaky Girl was moved out of the rap category and into the pop category. The unfairness being, as Nicki said, the fact that both songs are a combination of hip hop and pop, an urban pop fusion, which Nicki pioneered. And although it combines pop elements, above all, it is a rap song, and it should have been nominated in the rap category. And check out my video on Pop Nika for you to understand more of how Nicki really made making pop and hip hop or pop rap songs a thing. In that video, I talked about the first ever Grammy Awards where hip-hop artists were nominated. Rappers did receive nominations, but they refused to attend the first time. Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff were some of the artists who refused to attend, and it was because the Grammys weren't going to televise that particular award. So they said that if they're not going to be represented on a televised segment, then they're not going to attend. So check out that video, because I do play the interview clip where Will Smith is talking, and he's talking about the Grammys at that time. But it just goes to show that there is a wider ongoing conversation to be had about the Grammys, and not just Nicki's relationship with them. And I'm basically going to talk about why this ongoing issue with Nicki and the Grammys is bigger than just her, and has a wider context in how the music industry treats black artists, especially rap artists as a whole, and hip-hop's wider relationship with the music industry. So if you're interested in that topic, then stick around and keep watching this video, and make sure that you like this video, leave a comment and subscribe, because it helps me with the algorithm. And follow me on everything at Blessing Makosha if you want to see more of my life and my thoughts. So the first topic that I want to talk about when it comes to this Grammy thing is industry and politics. In order to understand why Nicki Minaj doesn't have a Grammy, then you need to understand where Nicki Minaj sits in relation to the music industry and the politics of that music industry. Nicki's essentially a bit of an outlier. Even though she is a massive record-breaking artist, she has worked with major labels, major artists, major award shows. She still carries and holds herself rather independently and separate to the music industry and how it operates. I mean, she famously said, "I don't do fake industry parties and fake agendas." You know, that's always been her personality. And it's been spoken about. Lots of artists have spoken about what goes on behind the scenes in order to secure a Grammy. But there are many moving pieces on the chessboard, and it's never as simple as your fave winning a Grammy or not winning a Grammy. There are a lot of moving pieces that go behind this award. So when somebody does win a Grammy, there's often been a lot of that behind the scenes, shaking hands and kissing up to get in the good graces of the people who are going to be making the decisions. And those decision makers, they will gravitate more towards the artists that show that effort, that connect with them, that bond with them. And the artists that don't play the fake industry politics and fake agendas don't win. So if you're in a 360 contract, and we've talked about 360s before on my channel, but if you've got a label and management who are pouring money into you, they will profit from an award-winning artist under their belt or in their roster. So when you are having a foundation laid ahead of you to secure a Grammy, it's not necessarily because of talent, but a lot of the time it's everything to do with the network people have created around them. And those are the people who are going to make sure that you are set up well enough for you to win a Grammy, because it is financially beneficial to them. If their asset, their investment has awards after their name, they can charge more for your features. They can charge more for your tours. They can do more with you as a commercial enterprise. And that's why a lot of people do say Grammys aren't for artists anymore. They are for the industry. And that makes sense, because if major labels are feeding artists to be picked and taken on for their Grammys, they can say that about their artists and then make more money off of them. That shouldn't surprise you. So many independent artists spoke out about this in terms of the most recent Grammy nominations. Independent artists have really spoken out about all of this a lot. A lot of them have said, like I said earlier, it is about the shaking hands, the kissing up, the being in the good graces of people. That is how you get ahead when it comes to securing a Grammy. And if you don't have that infrastructure behind you, you don't have label, management, advertising, PR, all these people who, because they're making money off of you, are going to try and get you the most money possible. You're not going to have that pathway into these award shows otherwise. I think the main thing for these independent artists is that they feel like the real culture, the real hip-hop culture, is being put on a back burner, because what's being pushed to the front isn't necessarily real hip-hop. It just is a real enough brand that labels, management, whoever can sell and then recoup. That's the idea. Sell, recoup, sell, recoup. So above all, they feel that the real culture is being shut out. These award shows aren't necessarily reflecting or representing, who we feel should be awarded on that level. Above all, it's just not as straightforward as people want to make it seem. There is a lot of industry politics. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that's happening to secure people Grammys, to put people in favorable positions. And so somebody like Nicki Minaj not having a Grammy isn't indicative of talent, but it could be indicative of her lack of desire to play the game in order to get what she deserves. And I think that's partly why we're in the current position, is because Nicki will not bend. It's not as simple as your fave not getting a Grammy or someone winning or losing. It's a lot of different people that are involved and a lot of different considerations to take into when you think of somebody getting a Grammy. So the second topic is more of a question, and that's, how are we supposed to measure success in hip-hop? If hip-hop has traditionally been an independent genre that was created to champion marginalized Black voices, to give Black people a space and culture where they were oppressed, and to create art from Black people's lived experiences, it's surely not going to be in majority-owned media outlets that are there to cater to the majority. The point is that hip-hop, although it is a multi-billion-dollar industry now, has roots in the underground. hip hop was always there to serve the streets. And there's ways that you can go triple platinum in the streets, and meanwhile the song never charted. You know, there's so many Nicki songs that I just can't believe have never even charted like that, but they're still iconic. A great example is New Body. That wasn't released, that never had a formal debut, but it went triple multi-platinum in the streets because everybody was playing that leaked version, making TikToks with it, you know, making styling videos with it. It didn't really matter that it had no Billboard accolades, because ever since Nicki dropped that song, every female rapper you can hear is saying that they want a Minaj with the new body. They all say it, want a Minaj with the new body. This is now a thing, Minaj with the new body, Nicki Minaj, you associate that with her. It's like her Itty Bitty Piggy all over again. It's like she has another one every single year. But the point is, that has absolutely no industry accolades, but the song is still iconic. So how are we supposed to measure artists who can do that? Rappers are able to do that. You know, Nicki Minaj, she famously sold $1 million off a mixtape. How do you do that? She hadn't even touched a major label yet. These are the things that rappers, hip-hop artists have been able to do without any industry acknowledgement. So is it really the music industry that's gonna be the place we go to judge these artists and to decide who is valuable and who isn't valuable, who is winning and who isn't winning? Because I don't think the Grammy stage is where we're supposed to go to find out these answers. And let's talk about media outlets themselves, because even though the Grammys isn't a media outlet like a magazine or anything, it is still part of the media machine, because the content that's created around and for the Grammys influences a lot of the conversation in music, at least for the time leading up to the Grammys. You know, that's all that people can talk about. So if you think about it like that, we need to remember that the media doesn't help rappers. It's never been the space where rappers go to be understood. More often than not, the media is going to sensationalize rappers' lives and interactions with each other. Two notable examples are Tupac and Biggie, and Nicki Minaj and Cardi. If you look at the way media outlets would speak about these four individuals in their respective pairings, they egg on a lot of the sensationalism and drama around hip-hop culture. They egg things on. I couldn't believe how many articles I saw after Cardi had debuted, with all of these media outlets commissioning journalists to write pieces on why Nicki is no longer the queen of rap, why Cardi has taken Nicki's throne. And if you look at the things that they say because Cardi got 3 number ones. Nicki's never had a number one, so she's the queen of rap. How is it possible? You know, this is not where we should look to judge our culture. These media outlets don't have our culture, the best interest of our culture in their minds. You know, it's really not where we should be turning. We should be looking to outlets that represent us. And I think that it's still good to listen to word of mouth. You know, what do your friends have to say? When's the last time you turned around and asked your friends which hip hop album are they bumping? Who's their favorite artist? What's their favorite verse? Because it's the people who think like you, who live the life that you do, who are listening to music for the reasons that you're listening to music. They're the ones whose taste you should worry about. They're the ones who you should be having conversations with. They're the ones who you should be checking in with, your community, your actual people you know. You don't know anybody on the Grammys committee. So why are we holding the Grammys in a higher esteem than we're holding each other? It doesn't make sense. And, you know, hip hop has always stood apart from the mainstream. It had to. Like I said before, it was the voice of marginalized people. So how can hip hop be recognized by institutions created and dominated by the majority? It doesn't make sense for us to go to them to find validation for a culture that was created by Black people. we still need to keep that in mind and not be too hasty to place the value of these accolades above the value that real rappers and real hip hop brings to the streets, to real people with real lives, not industry people sat around a table. I think the same reason that black actors have struggled at the Oscars and other major acting awards shows is the same reason why black rap artists have struggled at the Grammys, because the house was not built for them. And it's gonna be a long time until we're in a place where hip hop is genuinely respected and placed on the same level of other established music genres. But until that day, we have to remember that we are navigating these spaces, these industries, these professions that haven't traditionally been open to us. And with that, there's gonna have to be a degree to which we remember, like, okay, whilst I respect the platform and what you stand for, in terms of how you actually represent and reflect my community, I am still gonna make sure that I keep an ear to the streets and listen to what real people have to say, because the music industry will lie to you if it can sell records for the right record label. It's not gonna help you pick the best music, but it will put in front of you the things it thinks it can make money off. I think the main thing about Nicki being a threat and intimidating to the music industry is because they can leverage denying her accolades in terms of her wider historical significance. And by that I mean the Grammys is something that our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids are going to watch, even if they watch reruns of it, and they're going to remember. They are likely going to continue on. So more and more people are going to be associating Nicki not having a Grammy with her not being good. And that's why, in my opinion, robbing her of a Grammy is trying to discredit her legacy. And in my opinion, when you think of what Nicki represents to the wider music industry, they want you to forget that. They want you to forget about the lady that made $1 million off a mixtape. You know, they want you to forget Nicki and to remember the other rappers, you know, the people whose catalogs they have paid for. And because if they are going to get lifetime return on their investments, then they want you to keep looking at these artists and thinking about these artists and playing these artists. And so doing things like giving them Grammys gives more legitimacy for them to be, you know, eaten up and accepted. In order to get lifetime returns on their investment, they've got to keep that artist in the conversation. And when it comes to Nicki, she owns herself. So no one but her children, and maybe their children are going to financially benefit from her legacy. And that's just how different she is. So to summarize everything I've said in this video, there's a lot of reasons why Nicki Minaj doesn't have a Grammy, but the biggest one is because she is not industry in the way that the industry would like her to be. I mean, I don't personally know her ins and outs, so for all I know, she could be having dinner with the Grammys committee every day. I don't think she is, though. I think above all, we just have to remember that the music industry has its own institutions, and institutions can be very difficult to change. When it comes to Nicki not having a Grammy, I think it's quite clear that there is something on an industry level that explains it. I don't think it's anything to do with her talent level. It's never anything to do with her skill. But it is all industry politics and games. Above all, this is an industry. The music industry is gonna be like a machine. And since Nicki has always stood in opposition to it, you know, the fact that she's had the experiences she's had with her last 10 nominations makes sense, because she's not an outlier, but she's independent. You know, she doesn't fall within the industry politics and industry games. And that's why she's able to, you know, look at this and see, right, I'm not getting Grammys And I'm going to call out why, because there are lots of other artists who are going to be in this position and this isn't fair for them. And, you know, that's where she's going to come from because of everything I've talked about in this video. She's not industry. Even though she's got smash hits, pop hits, and she's connected, of course she is, but she doesn't have an industrial machine backing her. You know, she takes on a lot of the risks and she builds this out on her own. And because of that, I think it's important that we remember that there may not be a space to give her enough flowers. With the way institutions like the Grammys are set up, that may not be where we give her flowers because they're not enough. But we can give her flowers, for example, in, you know, showing that the culture or the subculture that she created is still alive and kicking. And that's where I think that we can show more sort of like support whilst acknowledging that institutions like the Grammys and stuff aren't necessarily going to support our artists. They're not necessarily going to respect our artists, and they're not necessarily going to make our artists win. If you're looking for a place to measure success in hip hop, it's just not going to be at the Grammy Awards. It's never been at the Grammy Awards. It's not where we should go. And I think when it comes to Nicki, take Nicki out of it in a way and look at it as a wider context. The biggest female rapper of all time has never won a Grammy. But if you look at her impact in the streets with people's everyday lives, she's goated. We've got to consider that this culture that we've got is special. And when it does get into the hands of decision makers in these musical institutions, establishments, award shows, then travesties happen. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. You know, I want to know what you think about this entire Grammy situation. Make sure that you like this video, leave a comment and subscribe. Do you agree with me that this issue with Nicki and the Grammys is actually bigger and it's an issue of hip hop's relationship with media, award shows and media outlets as a whole? I want to know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, like it, comment and subscribe because it helps me beat the algorithm. And make sure that you follow Blessing Makosha on everything to get even more of my content. And I will see you in my next video. Peace.